Hi, and thank you for joining me right here on the Toddcast. When I was a kid, my dad never missed an opportunity to spark the entrepreneurial spirit in me. And he's given me countless pieces of wisdom that I use every day. And I remember him saying, never rely on just one income stream, because if that dries up, your financial freedom goes with it. And he would also say, get really comfortable learning to accept multiple revenue streams and diversify yourself so you're not stuck behind one opportunity. But back then, I didn't really realize what Dad was talking about. But as I grew older and I watched businesses rise and fall and I saw the fluctuations, I found myself on a roller coaster. Great excitement as it's climbing, and then as the revenue dries up, all of a sudden, I'd feel like that free fall. And that wasn't so exciting for my family as much as it was for me. And markets swing, and even executives or even doctors experience and face burnouts and layoffs. And I realized this when I got laid off in 2010, and I was desperate to figure out what was next, but I learned something: economic resilience. Economic resilience changed so much in my life, and that's why today's conversation is all about building additional income streams and investments. And it isn't just about a smart financial move, it's a survival instinct.
This podcast is brought to you by the Wirebuzz team. Now, if that name sounds familiar, it's because I've spent the past decade growing Wirebuzz into a digital marketing powerhouse designed to maximize clarity in complex sales processes so we can help accelerate revenue. And we do this in 3 phases. Phase 1, we transform your website to function like your best salesperson, and then also incorporate persuasive on-demand sales videos. Now your entire team is aligned on messaging, and they're injecting massive clarity into your prospect's head. So your site looks great, but it also has engaging content that helps your team sell on demand 24/7. The next phase, phase 2, we train your sales and marketing teams to sell remotely or in person to expand the impact of your sales team. And the third phase is we develop and run targeted ads to your prospects. Scale those ads to help you achieve more business results. Sign up for the Wirebuzz Company newsletter to learn more about effective and simple ways to improve your company messaging, attract more digital attention, and ultimately make more sales.
In today's economy, you can't have enough financial freedom, whether you're running a business or a medical practice. Diversification is how you take control of your financial trajectory instead of being controlled by it. And that's why I'm joined right now by Dr. Kenji Asakura, and he is a board-certified internal medicine physician turned real estate investor and entrepreneur who teaches professionals how to reclaim control of their financial futures. Dr. Asakura, thank you so much for joining me right here on the Toddcast.
Hey, Todd. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, it's cool, man. So in the interest of full disclosure, for those listening, we both are in the Tony Robbins world, and we're both, I would say, disciples of Tony's incredible teaching. After years of working in hospitals, I'm sure you saw that high-income earners can feel trapped when their income streams depend on what they're depending on slows or dries up. Talk to me about your medical experience and what brought you to this point where you started advocating for others with other investment opportunities and even real estate.
I've been had a interesting journey. I've been really going back and forth between medicine and business all my life, and so I've really had a chance to kind of see the other side and see other perspectives, not just years of medical training. A lot of us in medicine, it's years of training. We have a singular focus. It's important to have that focus, but at the end of the day, I was fortunate enough to see the other side, see other opportunities, and see the value of creating some of these other income streams. When you talk about doctors, and I really do believe that a lot of doctors are suffering in terms of not just the hours, but also I don't think that a lot of doctors get the training, the mindset training, and how to handle some of the pressures that they're dealing with, how to also be in that beautiful state, as what Tony always talks about, where a lot of the doctors that I know, and fortunately lost a couple colleagues to suicide, a lot of them are suffering, and a lot of that is in their head.
Yeah. It's like, and a lot of people that aren't physicians see physicians and say, oh, their whole life is financially taken care of. I was talking recently with one of the nation's top cancer experts. And for context, and Kenji, I know you know this about me, but I was the only marketer that was on the White House chairman of the president's cancer panel as a special advisor for the last two White Houses. And one of those superstar cancer gurus on a flight across the country confided in me. I've never been able to get financial freedom doing this work. And I think there are a lot of professionals outside of the medical space and inside that have discovered that no matter how much impact and love and service they've put out there, financial freedom's been escaping them. Is that a common theme that you've seen for people?
Yeah, for sure. And I think there are a number of factors that go into that. I think one of them is coming out so late from training, right? So we have friends that have been making money since they graduated from college at 22. But most physicians start earning an income at 30, and there's a lot of delayed gratification. Of course, we aim to educate doctors about saving and investing, but a lot of them, they come out of training and they have a lot of this pent up, I want to spend and I want to live a good life, have the house, have the cars, those types of things.
They've delayed gratification. Many of them take on like $1 million in debt and lived poor while going through all those years. So you get to see that, right in front of your eyes all the time.
Yeah, 100%. And then, add to that the debt, like you just said, you have those big debt payments coming out at age, let's say 30, and it could be multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars. If you went through 7 years of surgical training and fellowship on top of medical school, then you're coming out even later and even in more debt. And so, yeah, it can be pretty crushing coming out. Then you want to spend money, like you said, and there's not much saving or investing going on. And they also don't have the tools, right? They don't know how to do that. And so they're really coming out at a huge disadvantage going through medical school and focusing on their studies, which they should be doing, but really coming out at a huge disadvantage when they come out of training.
So what wakes people up, when the reality hits them that, one income stream isn't enough? What do you commonly see?
It's a good question. I'd say that a small subset of people have woken up and really started exploring other avenues. Most of them have head down, focused on their work. A lot of them are extremely passionate about patient care or research, and it's an incredible thing. However, I think that if they spent a little bit of time, and it doesn't take a lot of time, if they spend a little time focusing on their finances, learning how to invest, it can make a huge, huge impact. And what wakes them up, I think it's, Tony talks about a threshold, right? They hit this threshold and they say, not another day, I'm done, I got to do something. And oftentimes, interestingly, it comes with taxes. Say they look at their tax bill or tax time and they're like, I can't believe I'm handing this much to the government. And then, of course, I don't want to get political, but what are they doing with that money, right? So they kind of hit that threshold. And once they hit that threshold, then they start looking for options and opportunities. And there are a number of us in the physician community who are teaching about financial freedom, about passive income streams, us included. Our focus is on real estate and building up your real estate portfolio. So a lot of them at that point will seek us out.
And I think it happens, at least it happened for me. Like, I think you nailed it. It happened for me when I went through the end of the year process with my revenue acceleration agency, and we were crushing it for our clients. But when I looked at our margin at the end of the year, what was left was a 7% margin. And instantly, man, I went into depression. I was like, wait a minute. We did all of that, flew all over the place, had huge success for people, and we ended up with 7%. And that made me realize that a change needed to happen. And that realization started off as oh shit, we've got a problem. And it became a rallying cry to improve the way and within 3 months, 90 days of that realization, our revenue went up 76%, and we increased our margin from 7% to 42%. And that for me was like, all of a sudden, business and life became fun again, and even my zits cleared up. And for high achievers, whether it's a physician or a business owner, there's often a deep identity tied to the profession, but also to the results, the fruit of the labor. How do you help people shift from seeing themselves as workers or specialists to actually seeing themselves as a wealth builder?
Well, our mutual mentor talks about this a lot, but identity is a huge thing. And one of the things that we teach is embracing the identity of a real estate investor. Because if you don't, and if you kind of think of yourself as a newbie, which a lot of them come into our courses thinking that they're newbies, even at the end of the course, even after they bought a few properties, they're still calling themselves newbies. And we say, look, how you show up with your agents, your property managers, contractors. If you show up as a newbie, it's night and day difference versus coming in as my wife used to say, I'm a real estate baron. And this is even before we had our first property. She just claimed that identity of a real estate baron. And yeah, it makes a huge difference. So that's one of the things that we do talk about is and Tony talks about expanding your identity. And so that's one of the things that we talk about, is expand your identity to include real estate investor. And that makes a huge difference.
I also noticed that if you're passionate about something and you invest a little bit of time here and there, you can become really great at it. I'll give you an example. You know how people like binge watch Netflix? My wife and I, even though we pay for Netflix and like 7 other streaming services, we rarely turn them on. What we normally binge is the Zillow app on our TV, and we're looking for real estate. And we're looking for real estate that has, in certain areas, that has significant upside, that hasn't had the maximum growth potential with low property tax. And we do that all the time in our neighborhood. And even because we're binging it so much, like right now we're going through Utah. And then we're going to do Idaho. And it's fun for us because we're looking at all of the economic indicators. And then we have that conversation about that's a good investment. And that triggers us to take the next step. And you talk about leverage, and not just financial, but time and knowledge leverage. How can someone who's already busy start creating new income without adding another full-time job or more on their plate?
Yeah, I think it's a great message around, success leaves clues, right? So I think finding somebody who knows what they're doing, who's actually doing what you want to do, what you want to achieve, not somebody who is, maybe owns a few properties and has been doing it for a few years. I think it's important to find somebody who has that experience, who's invested through recessions, who's had success, and then learn from them, because it could shortcut the time that it takes to achieve success in something like real estate investing. And for a busy professional, I can't imagine going to books and YouTubes and podcasts and those types of things and trying to piece it all together yourself. It is so much easier, and you'll save so much time. And that's probably one of the biggest limiting beliefs of people coming into our courses. I don't have enough time, which, they have limited time, but it's not true that they don't have enough time to be successful with real estate. But one of the keys there is to have the right who, right? It's not a how, but a who. And so finding that who, somebody who can guide you, be a mentor, I think is extremely valuable.
Yeah, it's cool. I've been observing this one, I guess I would say, phenomenon in my life. I first noticed it when I was training a little known breast surgeon, his terms, not mine, in Northern Virginia. And we started getting him using video and my strategies. And the next thing, his career took off and he went from little known to international expert, and then eventually the White House chairman of the president's cancer panel. What I noticed is he got out of his zone of genius to learn a complementary skill. And I noticed that when people do this, they stop being an expert all day long, polished expert, genius of this one swim lane, and they start learning about complementary skills and diversify, and they get past the fear of the confusion that's holding them back or the fear of potentially losing money or time. And that is the acceleration moment, that complementary knowledge that they learn outside of their traditional swim lane that moves them into the next great big chapter of their life. And I love that. It's like a new rocket put on their back. How do you help people overcome that hesitation when it comes to something they haven't studied or and spent their time around? How do you help them overcome that hesitation?
Yeah, and a big part of that is realizing that you can be much more than a doctor or whatever profession that you're doing, and to realize that. And one of the things that we often say is that real estate is not med school hard. Right. And so it's something that you can certainly learn. And what we realize is that when you arm somebody who is an overachiever, intelligent, with real estate knowledge, the things they do with it, it's incredible. They far surpass the average investor out there who might have been doing it for 15, 20 years, just because they're so creative and they're so talented, naturally talented. And so absolutely, somebody, really, anybody with intelligence can go out and learn how to invest in real estate, be very successful at it. A lot of it is what Tony teaches about patterns and recognizing patterns. That's one thing that doctors are very good at, right? We're always studying patterns of diseases, right? So when we see certain symptoms, that's a pattern, right? That tells us what disease it is. So similarly with real estate, all you're looking at when you're looking at Zillow, you're looking for patterns of opportunity, right? And so what we do is we teach utilizing patterns that are out there. So we have a compilation of different ideas for forcing the value of a property to go up, because that's one of the best ways to make money with real estate is forcing appreciation, right? It's something you can control. Market appreciation you don't control, forced appreciation you can control. And it all comes down to patterns. And one of the best things that we see from our community is that they actually start to create patterns, which is amazing when they go out and find something that nobody else has. Maybe somebody in the world has figured that out, but nobody in our community has ever done anything like that. And it's incredible because these are like multi-million-dollar ideas that you can implement in any market. And it's again, like I said, a new pattern that nobody had discovered. And again, like I said, if you arm smart people with real estate knowledge, they can do really well with it. And we have lots of examples of that.
And there's a difference between smart diversification and like scattered effort. Like, for example, I am right now in production on 2 Netflix-style documentaries that I'm the host and the executive producer of. And this is smart diversification, not scattered effort. And a lot of successful professionals, they feel will spread too thin. And there's a difference between diversified and being distracted. What does strategic diversification look like in your mind? And how can professionals avoid spreading themselves too thin and feeling out of control?
It's a good question. When I think about investing versus building wealth, I think those are now, of course, you can build wealth by investing. But if I think about like, if I want to grow my wealth quickly, so a lot of the doctors that come to us, they're in their 30s or 40s. They don't have that much saved up. They've maybe just paid off their loans, and they're thinking about building wealth quickly. They want that freedom quickly. And the question is like, how do I build that freedom quickly? Well, you could invest in something and make 7 to 10%, but it's going to take you a long time. First of all, you need a lot of capital to get started, and then it's going to take a long time for you to, double, quadruple, whatever that money, right? So just that compounding effect takes time. How do you build wealth quickly? And I kind of think of it as you could either build a business, right? Or you can invest in real estate, right? And not invest passively, but actually own real estate. Why is that? Well, I look at rentals as a business. It's a rental business, right? I make the distinction between the two because rentals come with unique tax benefits. And so, and then also if I think about a physician coming out, are they really going to go out and start a business? Some do, for sure. But I think real estate is much more accessible for somebody who's working full time as a doctor and wants to invest. And so, if I think about building wealth, that's what I say. Of course, there's lots of other investment options. There's lots of other directions you can go, but that's one way in which I do help people think about the, the question of like how you're going to build your wealth quickly in a matter of 3 to 5 years. My wife and I, we achieved freedom in 3 years using some seed money that we had for a home we were going to buy, primary home. Instead of buying that primary home, we said, okay, we're real estate investors. And so we started investing. In 3 years. We had enough cash flow coming in from those properties to consider ourselves free. And that was actually, it's funny, that was the money that we used to pay for platinum partnership for both of us. We figured we needed $230,000 for both of us to be, my wife and I, to be platinum partners and to pay for all the trips and everything. And so that was essentially the amount of money that we had in cash flow coming from our properties. That year, we spent the money on something else. But what was cool about it, which is a different story, is that we built a business that actually made that money back that first year that we started investing. And we, credit all the learnings and teachings from Tony and Business Mastery, those types of things that allowed us to create a business in addition to our rental portfolio.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, man. I have a revenue acceleration agency, and I've built that kind of economic freedom with my agency Wirebuzz, and with each of my clients, I get a piece of their financial upside. And we've had, just in this last year, we had about $200 million in client success stories. And that changed everything in my life. And then when I opened up a speaking coaching business, that's when those two things together, I started to see hyper revenue acceleration. And I feel like it changed virtually everything, because all of a sudden I had options. And with options, life became fun again, and I could start living the passion and the purpose that I really wanted to live. And I want that for people that are listening right now. Like, you friggin' deserve it. And maybe you're just so close. Can you do me a favor? Can you share an example of someone, a physician or even a business leader, who added a second income stream and saw major transformation in their financial or their lifestyle freedom? Because when I saw in my wife's eyes what financial freedom did for her and the relaxation that it gave her, like letting go of gripping on the steering wheel of our life, that even changed the way she looked at me. I'm sure you've got stories. Can you share a couple stories with me?
Yeah, for sure. And really, this is one of my favorite Jim Rohn quotes, right? The value in anything you do is not in what you get, but who you become in the process. And so a lot of what we teach is becoming the type of investor who can go out and create money with real estate. I mean, literally, they're creating money, they're printing money with real estate. And what's interesting is that we have some people who actually, maybe have bought one property or maybe even 0 properties, but they actually feel free in their lives because they know that they actually have become the person who can go out and make money in real estate when they free up the time, right? I didn't say, when they have the time, and when they choose to free up the time to go out and invest, right? And so that is, we have a number of people like that who go out and actually show up to work completely differently because they know that their work is a choice, that they could go out and create freedom for themselves if they want to, because they become. And so I think that's a huge shift that people in our community make when they learn the skills. Some people when they come in, they're so focused on getting that short-term rental so they can shelter their income that year. But one of the things we say is that, look, more than that, the most important thing is becoming that type of investor who can go out and buy a great deal and get the tax benefits. A lot of people just buy terrible deals, get the tax benefits, but they end up with a really bad deal. Another story, is somebody who was actually a relatively new graduate who went out and leaned into it, and she and her husband went out and bought a number of properties. Her husband had this status called real estate professional, which allowed them to shelter her income, her physician income with the real estate. And so they had this really great thing, cash flow. She had her job. She cut back some. She had cash flow from the properties, and then she had they had the tax savings from the real estate sheltering the income. And so they had that going. They very quickly, in a couple of years, they were able to achieve freedom. And now they travel the world, and they're thinking about moving to somewhere in Europe maybe. But they're trying to decide. But somebody who's created that freedom for themselves. It's incredible.
Freedom comes in a lot of different forms. We live in a great neighborhood up in the mountains north of Scottsdale. All of our neighbors have multiple homes. Something freed happened to me that while you were talking, it just triggered. I've never shared this story. I always wanted a Porsche, and my accountant kept always approving it. And what kept me from ever getting one was that my neighbor has a garage full of Porsches, and my neighbor has 5 homes, and she'll text me. She's a race car driver, and she'll be like, "We're not going to be back for 3 weeks. Would you mind taking the cars out and exercising?" And I drive them all the time, and now have the financial freedom to get whatever I want. And I've realized I don't want any of it. And that's how freedom is totally unexpected. And it's funny that happens. If somebody's listening right now and they've been relying on just one paycheck or one business model, what's the very first step that they can take right now to start building a second stream of income, even if it's just a small first step?
Yeah, that's a great question. Obviously, the bigger the step, the better, because as our mentor says, you never want to leave a scene of a decision without taking some sort of massive action. And so what I would say is sign up for a course or sign up with a mentor or a coach if real estate is the avenue that you want, or if you want to start a business, that could be a different direction. But if real estate is what you want to do, you want to create some income and also some tax benefits, then I would say the massive action would be, and it's not little. I know you're asking about little, but it would be the step that would commit you to that direction, right? And I think that's one of the things. It's so easy to do something small and then just kind of let it go and forget about it and maybe come back to it 5 years from now. And I think that the biggest regret of every investor I know is, I wish I started sooner. And so if you delay, then you could be one of those investors who go, I wish I started sooner, or I wish I started at all. And so I really don't want that for you guys. And so I would say take massive action and make a commitment. We often say the transformations in the transaction, and that financial commitment of signing up for $230,000 mastermind was a really big deal back in 2019 for us. But it really committed us to action. And after that, we took massive action with our business. We took massive action with our real estate portfolio. It completely changed the trajectory of our lives.
So great. Success leaves clues, doesn't it?
It does, yeah, for sure.
Well, he's Dr. Kenji Asakura, and with his wife, Leti, through their company, Fast Fire Capital and Semi-Retired MD, they help physicians and business leaders create passive income through strategic real estate investments. And if you want to learn how to build financial freedom without sacrificing your career, please visit fastfirecapital.com or semiretiredmd.com. Kenji, thank you so much for coming here on the podcast, adding value and helping people see the patterns that lead to financial freedom.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yo, that was a powerful episode. And from what we just learned, it should be obvious how you can now implement these lessons in your life to get to the next level. Now, before you bounce, I just have 3 quick thoughts. First, thank you for taking me on your incredible life journey. Second, if you receive some value from me and you want to pay it forward, it would mean the world to me if you left an honest rating and review at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. I'd be incredibly grateful. And lastly, if you share this episode, whether it be a screenshot or a photo from where you're listening, anything via Instagram stories or LinkedIn, Facebook, or any of the social media sites, just tag me and the guest. I'll repost your content and I'll reply back in the comments because I love mixing it up. In fact, I'd love to share your shout outs in my feed too. Not only are these shout outs really good for you and for me, but they also help us book more amazing guests because they'll be able to see the reach that you're helping to cultivate. This is a way for you to help contribute to the show. So thank you again for listening, and I look forward to earning a regular spot inside that ear of yours. Let's grow.